Hey everyone, welcome to PC Perspective. We are here with another video today to kind of demonstrate building another system that you might be able to use for a Steam machine or really anything else for that matter. You can see here we just got done playing some games on that and showing you that SteamOS was actually installed and running in this system right here. This is a new case coming out built by Silverstone, the RVZ01. And I'm going to go ahead and shut it down as we want to walk you through the benefits of this case, some of the cool features that it has, and we'll talk about some of the hardware that we're using in this build as well. What's very unique about this design is that it appears to be almost exactly the same hardware, or at least the same case that Valve sent out with those 300 for those 300 beta Steam users, and we'll kind of show you as we go how some of these similarities really do match up. You can see already the type of case that we're looking at here is a kind of not a rack mount, but something that would go into your electronics cabinet in your house. It's kind of got that same form factor. It kind of looks like the Xbox One. It's, you know, it's a little bit bigger than the Xbox One is, but it obviously packs a whole lot more horsepower in there as well. Let's go through some of the components that we're using inside the system, and then what we'll do is we're going to do a reverse build. We're going to kind of open it up and tear it apart as we go and show you the parts and components and some of the positives and negatives of the case design as we take it apart. Powering everything at its heart here is the new MSI Z87i gaming motherboard. This is obviously a Z87 board. It has 802.11 AC wireless networking into it. It's got a killer Ethernet port on there, audio boost, OCG Uni 4. A lot of cool features on this, a very feature-packed Mini ITX motherboard. For the graphics, we have another MSI part. This is a Mini ITX gaming graphics card. As the name would imply, it's kind of meant for small form factor systems. It's a shorter PCB, a smaller cooler, and you'll see, we'll show that when we get to that point in the build as well. The case here is, like I said, the Silverstone RVZ01, part of their Raven series of cases, and then they sent us some other accessories to go along with it. First of all, it does use the SFX power supply form factor, which kind of limits you in terms of your power supply options. Here they sent along a 450 watt 80 plus gold SFX power supply. We'll show you how that looks. And then this is a fully modular power supply. It comes with included cables, but they also sent along their optional Silverstone branded flat, flexible, short cable sets for modular power supplies. So this allows you to, they're shorter cables, so you have less extra to worry about when you're building a system, and they're flat, which kind of enables you to route them in more interesting or creative ways if you want to do that as well. And then for the cooler, we'll have some complaints and concerns about this particular cooler in this design as we go forward, but this is the NT06 Pro, or the Nitrogon series. It's a very high, it's a high performance heatsink. It is somewhat low profile, but it is big enough to cause concern with the amount of space you have in the case. High performance, but again, cause some issues with spacing that we'll go over. So let's, I'm going to go ahead and slide some of these items out of the way, and I'm going to bring our system here into the forefront. So if you've seen pictures of the Valve Steam machines that they sent out, you'll see some similarities right away, especially if you start to look at the back and how everything is formulated here. If we look actually at the back of the system, you'll see the MSI output here. We've got USB 3.0 ports, one hidden by our wireless keyboard mouse combo there. You've got HDMI and DisplayPort and all that stuff, but we're not taking advantage of those features of the integrated graphics because of our discrete graphics that we have over here. It does support a 2-slot graphics card. It will support fairly large graphics cards, even though we are using a small form factor specific model from MSI. And then you've got, if you look way over here, you've got your power cord actually goes in here, although the power supply is not directly located behind here, as should be obvious from the fact that you have your graphics card there. Along the sides, you'll see that there is, some of the standard kind of Silverstone classic design styling. The front has the Raven logo right here, you've got a slot loading optical bay, 2 front USB 3.0 ports, power and reset and audio connections up there. On this side, you've got the same type of styling, and on the back there. And then on the top, you'll see that there is a fan outlet here. Out of the box, this actually did have a fan installed in it, but it's because of the heatsink we had to use, or the heatsink that they sent along with it. We actually removed that and we put it at the bottom of the case. So let's go ahead and take the top off of the case here and start our reverse build guide, if you will. I think you'll see that the case has a lot of great features in it, and it also has just a couple of little quirks above and beyond the normal problems you have in working with small form factor cases. So if we go ahead and slide this off, normally here there would be a fan, but as you'll see, we actually had to remove it because you can see if you look at the top of the case here, there is very little room between the top of the heatsink and the actual top of the case. So there used to be a fan installed on the bottom of the lid, and the default installation for the fan on this heatsink is actually on top of this design as well. As with all small form factor Mini ITX based designs, space inside the case is going to be cramped. You have a little bit more room to work in this design than you do with some of the other ones like the EVGA Hadron case we looked at earlier, just because it is taking up a little bit more physical space. You can see we have our solid state drive installed here, room for another one as well. Our power supply is actually mounted back here, and here's our heatsink, and underneath here you'll have our graphics cards. So as we go ahead and tear this thing down, the first thing we're going to do is remove this entire compartment from the case itself. Now this holds the graphics card and storage devices, so if we go ahead and we've got to take out 6 different screws for that to take place, and then it's actually kind of neat because the entire assembly comes out in one piece, more or less. Obviously, you have to take care to watch where your power cables and data cables to your storage devices are going during this part, but it's pretty straightforward. Now, because this is a 90-degree mount on the on the graphics card here, rather, you can see the motherboard is laying flat this way, and the video card is actually running parallel to it instead of perpendicular to it. So we're going to go ahead and detach our SATA data and power cables here. Kind of move those out of the way for a little bit, and you can see this is the riser card that actually, allows you to install your PCI Express card at a parallel angle. So we'll go ahead and lift this entire compartment up, like so, and you get here, you can see our MSI Mini ITX Gaming GTX 760 graphics card in all of its glory, and you can also see the riser card here that is actually kind of permanently installed to this. So if we disconnect the power from the video card, we now have a completely separate compartment that has the video card installed, has the solid state drive installed, and would also have the optical drive, the slot loading optical drive installed here if we had one of those installed. Now, removing the video card at this point is really just like as if you were installing it into a different system, into a regular kind of standard ATX design. It just happens to be mounted to an external adapter board first. Silverstone does include some support brackets for larger, heavier video cards. Obviously, you can see if you look at this, you have at least another 2 inches of installation room, and that's further if you don't install any optical drives. And so the larger the video card you have, the more you should be worried about those kinds of mounting issues. So if we just take this out, you can see we've got that whole compartment, and then you've got your little PCI Express extension bracket that comes with the case as well. So graphics card installation is easy. You can see underneath the video card we have 2 fans. Normally, out of the box at least, in our configuration, there's only 1 fan here. And the second one actually came again from the top of the case that was mounted up here. The next thing we're going to go ahead and do is take off this heatsink way up here. And this was obviously, maybe not obviously, but far and away the most complicated part of the installation process. You can see that this heatsink is large enough that it more or less covers everything on the PCB of the motherboard. So installing your SATA connections, your power connections, anything like front panel connectors, headers, all of that had to be done beforehand, but then you also had to be sure to move it out of the way before you could actually install it and make sure you're making good contact with the processor. And then also, part of the installation process goes through the heatsink, which in a normal motherboard and installation process probably isn't that big of a deal. But when you're in a tight, cramped area, it will definitely cause problems, as it did for us. So, this is a workable situation, and if you want a high-performance cooler, you can absolutely use this unit with this case, as we've proven here. But it maybe is not ideal, and you might want to look at some smaller, more user-friendly installable options for your system. So we're going to go ahead and remove this. So I find the fan power cable there. All right, and so here's our heatsink with the mounting bracket, and you can see here the fan is actually being mounted underneath in this particular instance, and it's a well-made heatsink. Like I said, it's a high-performance unit, but it's really kind of cumbersome when working in the area that we're working in here. So now you can actually see the MSI Z87i Mini ITX motherboard with the mounting brackets. You can see we've got our Corsair memory installed. We've got the fan headers for the case fans. We've got our SATA connection. We've got front panel power up here as well. We've got our wireless connections. And now, if we take away some of these other front panel connectors, you can see that our cables coming from the power supply are indeed of the short and flat variety. Again, not a necessity for installing and using this case to get that optional kit, but it does make things quite a bit easier, and it makes, when space is of a, is hard to come by, having these types of flat power cables will definitely give you some advantages during installation. And you can see here's our full ATX flat connector. These would actually be nice for a lot of instances for Mini ITX design. Something to keep in mind if you're building systems, even based on other designs. And now the last thing we're going to do is we'll go ahead and take out the SFX power supply, which I think I'm going to go ahead and take these memory modules out first. Get to here. The SFX form factor, I do not believe is an actual official power supply form factor from any kind of ATX board, but it is something that Silverstone has kind of created and was promoting in order to kind of allow for these different form factor devices to be built, and at least internally inside their company have some kind of standard to build to as well. So it looks like there are a couple more screws on this side to remove. And you can also tell here this is another place where you could mount a storage device on top if you wanted to as well. There's actually room for quite a few components in this build that you don't get in a lot of other Mini ITX designs. So here's our SFX power supply, and you'll see here we actually have the extension for the power connector, which is what leads to the back of the case where you actually plug it in. And it looks like this will just slide out of this housing And there you go. It's pretty tiny for 450 watts. It is quieter than what you'll get. You can see the fan is larger than what you'll see in a traditional 1U power supply, that's a plus, right? You don't have to worry about noise being as much of an issue. 450 seems to be kind of the upper limit for this now, but I think any single graphics card would be used. It is fully modular, so you only need to connect the power cables that you have to use for your particular system. That's another big plus for small form factor designs, not having a big mass of power supply cables that you have to deal with if you don't have to. So that pretty much takes care of everything. You can see the motherboard mounts in essentially what is 1/4 or 1/3 of the design, and everything else, again, we kind of did it in reverse, but I think it worked out pretty well. So that's our experiences with the Raven RVZ01 case thus far. There's some other little things they had in the box. They have these fan filters that are magnetic. They can go on the underside or the top of the case. They don't look particularly attractive, but they're only really useful if they're on the outside of the case. There are some rubber feet if you want to stand this up on its side rather than lay it flat. They have support for that. So if that's how your desk or entertainment center is designed, you can absolutely do that. They also claim in their guides that this will support self-contained liquid water cooling. It's hard to imagine that being the case, kind of looking at it and playing with it now. They even show a 240 millimeter radiator being installed, which could only really work here, kind of in this bottom section where the graphics card was. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you have to use a single slot graphics card, for example. But there's a lot of flexibility in this. It's a very interesting case. We don't yet have a final price on it. I would expect somewhere in the $150 price range. Usually the Raven series cases aren't particularly cheap, but like I said, it's built well, and as far as we can tell, it's very likely that this is the design that Valve's Steam machines that they sent out for their beta program users is based on this design from Silverstone. So you can get as close as possible to building your very own Steam beta machine without being one of those 300 lucky users. So we're going to spend some more time with this. We'll probably rebuild this system with some different components. Maybe go with a 780 Ti instead of a 760 card or something like that, and really, make this a super high-end gaming machine that we can just put into the corner and use whenever we want. So pretty impressed with the Silverstone RVZ01 case thus far. Thanks for watching, guys.